They say love conquers all. But what they don't tell you is the price. The tears. The wars you have to fight. Not once, but again and again. To protect what's yours. This is a story about that kind of love. But if you haven't watched part 1, you need to click the link above to know how Josephine fell in love with Kyle during one perfect summer, and how his family almost ruined them. That's where part 1 ended. This is where the real fight begins. You, our amazing audience, requested for this, so please do well to share. We love you so much. Now, let's begin. 6 months after that hospital room, Kyle and Josephine were trying to build something from the wreckage. Their Malibu beach house was modest compared to the Hartwell estate. No marble terraces or crystal chandeliers, just wood floors and ocean views, and the sound of their daughter laughing. Aria was 18 months old now, a beautiful blend of both of them with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. Kyle had been sober for 6 months. Josephine was in therapy twice a week, learning to separate the man she loved from the family that tried to destroy her. It was hard work. Healing always is. There were nights she woke up screaming from nightmares about the tea and the blood. There were days Kyle caught himself reaching for a drink before remembering why he couldn't. But they were trying. They were fighting. Together. That morning started like any other. Breakfast on the deck, Aria in her high chair smearing mashed banana across her face, while Kyle made coffee and Josephine read the news on her tablet. The ocean was calm. For just a moment, it felt like peace might actually be possible. Then the doorbell rang. Process server. Legal documents. Josephine's hands shook as she read them. She's suing for visitation rights. Your mother is suing for grandparent visitation. Kyle felt ice flood his veins. She tried to destroy us. She nearly killed our daughter. And now she wants access to Aria? But their lawyer delivered worse news 2 days later. She actually has a case. California grandparent rights laws allow courts to grant visitation if it's deemed in the child's best interest. And her lawyers are arguing that Kyle was suicidal and addicted, that Josephine has severe PTSD, so the child needs stable family connections. They're going to argue we're unfit, Josephine whispered. They're going to try, the lawyer said. But we'll fight it. What he didn't know was that the conspiracy went so much deeper than visitation rights. In a penthouse across the city, smaller than the estate Vivienne lost, but still expensively furnished. 2 women sat across from each other like generals planning a war. Vivienne Hartwell looked older than her 58 years. The past 18 months had aged her, losing the estate, losing her son, losing everything her husband built. But worst of all, and this was what burned in her chest like acid, having to get on her knees in some cheap Portland apartment and beg that girl to come back and save Kyle's life. The humiliation of it. Vivienne Hartwell, who'd commanded boardrooms and society pages, reduced to begging from a grad student in leggings and a cardigan. And Josephine had looked at her with those eyes, those judging, pitying eyes, and said she'd think about it. Like Vivienne was the beggar and she was the queen. No, that couldn't stand. That wouldn't stand. My son destroyed $1 billion company for her, Vivienne said, swirling wine in her glass. Left the Hartwell empire in ruins. Everything my husband spent his life building. Gone. Because Kyle decided to play house with a girl he knew for 6 weeks. Celeste Beaumont sat across from her, equally beautiful and equally bitter. At 32, she should have been Mrs. Kyle Hartwell. Should have been securing her family's financial future through the merger their parents arranged when they were children. Should have been living in that estate, building that empire. Instead, she'd watched from the sidelines as Kyle threw it all away for some random woman he met one summer. Watched the Beaumont name. Old money, respected money. Become associated with ridicule. My father wanted to destroy him when he called off our engagement, Celeste said. I had to beg for days, convincing him to let it all go. Do you know why? Because you love him, Vivienne said quietly, grateful for being lucky to be spared by the Beaumont. Yes, I love him. And no matter how hard I tried, I still can't hate him, despite the betrayal. Celeste sighed. That is the only reason I'm here. The Beaumont-Hartwell merger can still hold, Vivienne said. But not while she's in the picture. They looked at each other. Two women who'd lost everything to the same love story. So we remove her from the picture, Celeste said. Over the next hour, they crafted their plan with surgical precision. Document every sign of Josephine's instability. The PTSD episodes, the panic attacks, any moment of weakness. Hire private investigators to capture it all. Build a case that she was mentally unfit to raise a child. Then take Arya through legal means. Clean, legitimate, impossible to fight. She'll leave, Vivienne said with certainty. She's done it before. She can't handle staying near a child she can't have. She'll run, and Kyle'll be devastated. And I'll be there, Celeste said, to help him through it, to remind him who he really is, to rebuild what we should have had from the beginning. And once enough time has passed, Vivienne continued, once he's thinking clearly again, without her influence, the merger proceeds. Both families restored, everything back as it should be. It wasn't just about revenge, they told themselves. It was about restoring order, about saving Kyle from himself, about protecting a legacy. They were lying, of course. It was absolutely about revenge. But revenge dressed up as righteousness is still revenge. And revenge has a way of consuming everything it touches. 3 hours away, in a studio apartment that smelled like cheap coffee and defeat, Imani Hartwell stared at the water-stained ceiling and wondered if this was hell, not the fire and brimstone kind, the quieter kind. The kind where you wake up every morning and remember what you did and know you can never undo it. The kind where you serve coffee to strangers and smile and pretend you're fine while your insides are rotting with guilt. She'd been cut off completely. No family money. No trust fund. No safety net. The daughter of Vivienne Hartwell, reduced to waiting tables at a diner where nobody knew her name or cared about her pedigree. Good, part of her thought. I deserve worse than this. Most days, she could almost handle it. The loneliness. The poverty. The weight of knowing she'd poisoned her best friend, nearly killed a baby, destroyed her brother's life. Most days, she could almost convince herself this was her penance. And maybe, somehow, it would be enough. Then her mother knocked on the door. Imani froze. She hadn't seen Vivienne in over a year. Not since Kyle cut them both off and Vivienne kept the penthouse, while Imani got nothing. The last words they'd spoken were Imani sobbing. I'm sorry, but I can't be around you anymore. You are a monster. And Vivienne responding with cold fury, feeling sorry doesn't fix anything. You can go wherever you want. She almost didn't open the door, but curiosity, or maybe some sick sense of family obligation she couldn't kill, made her turn the lock. Vivienne stood in the hallway, looking immaculate in designer clothes that cost more than Imani's rent. Her eyes swept over the tiny apartment with barely concealed disgust. Look at you, Vivienne said, living like this. My daughter, serving coffee to strangers. Imani's jaw tightened. What do you want, Mother? I want to offer you a way back. A way to reclaim our family, our name, everything we've lost. There is no our family anymore. Kyle made that clear. Kyle is being manipulated by that girl, Vivienne said, stepping inside uninvited. She's destroyed everything. His company, his reputation, our family. And now she's raising our flesh and blood in some beach house, keeping Arya away from her heritage. She's keeping Arya away from the people who tried to murder her, Imani said flatly. Seems reasonable. Vivienne's eyes flashed. I'm trying to make this right. I'm suing for custody. Your what? Grandparent visitation rights. I have a case. And with your help, I can win. We can get Arya away from her influence. Then Kyle will see clearly. We can rebuild. You can come home. The offer hung in the air between them. Home. Family. Money. Everything Imani had lost. All she had to do was help destroy Josephine one more time. Imani looked at her mother. Really looked at her. Saw the desperation hiding behind the designer clothes. Saw the rage masquerading as concern. Saw the same twisted logic that had led to a poisoning, a coma, a near death, and still somehow believed the problem was Josephine, not them. No, Imani said. Vivienne blinked. What? I said no. I helped you once. I destroyed my best friend. I nearly killed a baby. I ruined my brother's life and my own. Imani's voice was shaking but steady. I won't do it again. Get out. You'll regret this. When I've rebuilt everything and you're still rotting in this hovel. Then I'll rot, Imani said, but I won't help you hurt them again. Get out of my apartment. Now. Vivienne left, fury radiating from every line of her body. The door slammed, and Imani sat down on her second-hand couch and made a decision. She needed to know what her mother was planning, because if there was one thing Imani knew for certain, it was this. Vivienne Hartwell never accepted no for an answer, and she never stopped until she won or burned everything down trying. Over the next 3 weeks, Imani followed her mother, took buses across the city, wore hoodies and sunglasses, and watched Vivienne meet repeatedly with Celeste Beaumont at expensive restaurants and hotel lobbies, places where they thought no one was watching. But Imani was always watching, because she knew her mother's patterns. One night, she made her choice, broke into her childhood home, the penthouse her mother kept after losing the estate. She still had keys from before, and her mother was at dinner. It was now or never. She found the home office easily, and there, on Vivienne's computer. Because her mother was paranoid and kept everything, trusted no one, stored evidence of every scheme. Imani found it all. Emails between Vivienne and Celeste. The whole conspiracy laid out in black and white. Documentations of Josephine's instability. Strategies to win custody. Discussions of how to restore the family empire through the original merger once the girl was removed. Private investigator reports with photos of Josephine crying, looking stressed, all captioned with clinical observations about her mental state. And then, because Imani knew to look, she found her mother's old laptop. The one from 18 months ago, opened the browser history and search records. There it was. July 2024. Days before the poisoning. Misoprostol lethal dose. How to induce fatal hemorrhage pregnancy. Untraceable pregnancy termination. Can misoprostol cause death? Search after search. Research. Planning. Knowing exactly what those pills would do. Imani photographed everything with shaking hands. Every email. Every document. Every search record. Evidence that her mother hadn't been trying to help Josephine avoid a dangerous abortion. Evidence that Vivienne had researched lethal doses and deliberately given Imani pills meant to kill. She made me think they were supplements, Imani whispered to the empty office. She knew. She knew exactly what they'd do. She'd poisoned Josephine, but Vivienne had tried to murder her. And now she was trying to do it again, just with legal means instead of pills. Imani looked at the evidence on her phone and made the hardest choice of her life. She had to tell them. Kyle and Josephine, the people she'd destroyed. She had to walk up to their door and face them and give them this gift of information that might save them, but would never, ever earn their forgiveness. Because some sins are unforgivable. But that doesn't mean you stop trying to make them right. When Imani knocked on the door of the Malibu beach house 3 days later, she'd rehearsed her speech 1,000 times. But when Josephine opened the door, every word died in her throat. Josephine went white, then red, then white again. No. Get out. Wait. Imani started. I said, get out. Josephine's voice was shaking with rage. You don't get to come here. You don't get to... Kyle. Kyle appeared behind Josephine, and Imani watched his expression harden into something cold and dangerous. How dare you show your face here, he said quietly. They're going to take Arya, Imani said in a rush. In less than 3 months, Mother and Celeste Beaumont. They have a plan. And I have proof. We don't want anything from you, Josephine said. But Kyle put a hand on her shoulder. What proof? Imani pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Please. Just look. I know I have no right to ask. I know what I did. But look at this. The next hour was torture. Sitting in their living room while they called Marcus, while the lawyer reviewed the documents remotely, while Kyle and Josephine looked at her with expressions that mixed hatred and horror and reluctant interest. Marcus confirmed it all. This is real. This is conspiracy. And these search records. This is premeditated attempted murder. Then came the hardest part. Imani looked at Josephine. Couldn't meet her eyes, but forced herself to look at her face. And told her the truth. She told me the pills were natural supplements. She said women in other countries take them to induce miscarriage. That you'd have cramping and heavy bleeding, like a bad period, and then it would be over. She made it sound safe. Medical. Imani's voice cracked. But she knew. She researched lethal doses. She knew they would kill you. Josephine was trembling. You still gave them to me. I know. I'm guilty. I poisoned you. I helped her. And I'll go to prison for it if that's what justice demands. Imani finally met her eyes. But I won't let her destroy more lives. Not yours. Not Kyle's. Not that baby's. Why should we believe anything you say? Kyle demanded. You shouldn't, Imani said simply. But call your lawyer. Have him verify everything. And then decide. They did. Marcus confirmed every email, every document, every piece of evidence was legitimate. The conspiracy was real. Vivienne and Celeste were planning to take Arya, banking on Josephine leaving once custody was lost, positioning themselves to restore both family empires through the original merger. We can use this, Marcus said over speakerphone. This is enough for criminal charges. Attempted murder 18 months ago. Conspiracy now. Kyle looked at Imani. You understand what this means? You'll go to prison too. I know. I'm ready. I just needed to make sure she doesn't win this time. After Imani left, promising to testify, to do whatever they needed, Josephine collapsed into Kyle's arms and cried. Not because she forgave Imani, not because the betrayal hurt less, but because they were going to war and the enemy had just shown her hand. We file charges, Kyle said, against my mother. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. All of it. Kyle, she's your mother. She tried to kill you. Twice now she's tried to take everything from me. I'm done protecting her. Marcus moved quickly. Assembled evidence, lined up medical experts, prepared to file criminal charges. But Vivienne's lawyers moved faster. Emergency custody filing, mother mentally unstable, demonstrated by history of abandonment. Father enabling, compromised judgment. Child in immediate danger. Emergency hearing, 48 hours away. They're forcing our hand, Marcus said. Making us fight custody before we can file criminal charges. The night before the hearing, Josephine couldn't breathe. The PTSD was in full force. Weekly supervised visitations had been re-traumatizing. Watching Vivienne hold Aria, smile at her, play with her, all while Josephine knew what that woman had tried to do. What if they win? Josephine said, pacing their bedroom. What if the judge believes her? We have evidence. We have the truth. And what if that's not enough? She turned to him, eyes wild. What if I lose her again? Kyle pulled her close. We'll fight. Together. But Josephine's mind was spinning. There was one way they couldn't win. One way to make sure. Later, when Kyle fell asleep from exhaustion, Josephine made her choice. Packed a bag. Dressed Aria quietly. Left a note on Kyle's pillow. I can't risk losing her in court. This way you get full custody and they have no case. When it's safe, I'll come home. I love you. I'm sorry. Josephine disappeared into the night. Kyle woke to an empty house and a note that felt like a knife to the chest. But this time was different from the last time she left. Last time, he'd fallen apart, given up, drunk himself nearly to death. Not again. Never again. He called Marcus immediately. File everything. Now. Attempted murder, conspiracy, all of it. Kyle, the hearing is in... I don't care. File charges against my mother and Celeste Beaumont. And find Josephine. I need her at that hearing, or we lose everything. What if she doesn't want to be found? Then I'll make her want to come back. Meanwhile, across town, Vivienne and Celeste sat in a penthouse suite celebrating their victory with champagne. She left, Vivienne said, satisfaction thick in her voice. Just like I knew she would. Too broken to fight. So Kyle gets full custody, Celeste said. And without her influence, he'll eventually see reason. My son comes back to reality. The merger proceeds. We rebuild. Vivienne raised her glass. To restoration. They had no idea that Kyle was already tracking Josephine. That Marcus was already filing charges. That the web they'd spun so carefully was about to collapse on them. Kyle found her through Aria's pediatrician. The emergency contact still listed him. Portland. She'd gone back to Portland, where she felt safe. He drove through the night, arrived at dawn, knocked on her apartment door with desperate determination. Josephine opened it, shocked. How did you find me? The hearing is in 4 hours. If you're not there, we lose her forever. I left so you'd keep her. So they couldn't claim. You left because you're terrified, Kyle interrupted. So am I. But running doesn't protect her. Fighting does. What if we fight and lose? What if... Kyle took her hands, made her look at him. Then we lose together. But we don't give up without fighting. Do you trust me? Tears streaming down her face. I'm trying to. Then try harder. Because I need you. Aria needs you. And I'm not doing this without you. His voice cracked. We fight together or we don't fight at all. Josephine looked at their daughter sleeping on the couch. Looked at Kyle's face. Saw the man who'd searched for her for 8 months. Who'd stood by her hospital bed for 3 weeks. Who'd let her go when she asked. Then fought to bring her back. Who'd never, not once, given up on them. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's go. They raced to catch a flight, barely made it, arrived at the courthouse with minutes to spare. Vivienne's face when they walked in. Shock, then fury, then fear, was almost worth the terror of the past 12 hours. The hearing was brutal. Vivienne's lawyers attacked with precision, Mrs. Richardson has a documented history of abandonment. She left her child twice, once during her extended hospitalization, and again 2 nights ago, taking the child without notifying the father. This demonstrates profound instability. Mr. Hartwell enables this behavior, compromising his judgment as a parent. His recent history of substance abuse and suicidal behavior is well documented. They were losing. Josephine could see it in the judge's face. Then Marcus stood. "Your Honor, before you rule, I'd like to call a witness." Imani Hartwell. The courtroom gasped. Vivienne went white. Imani walked to the stand looking small and scared and determined. Took the oath, sat down, and told them everything. The pills, the lies, how Vivienne had researched lethal doses, had known exactly what would happen, had manipulated her own daughter into attempted murder. The current conspiracy with Celeste. The emails. The plans. She told me they were safe, Imani said, voice shaking. But she knew they would kill. She wanted Josephine dead. Marcus presented evidence. The laptop searches, dates, everything. Medical experts testified these dosages cause catastrophic organ failure. This wasn't pregnancy termination. This was attempted murder. The emails between Vivienne and Celeste, planning to remove Josephine and restore the empire. Financial records showing the Beaumont family's desperation. Everything laid bare. The judge's expression transformed from skepticism to disgust as she reviewed the evidence. Imani's testimony ended with, "I'm guilty. I gave her those pills. I'll go to prison for it. But I won't let my mother destroy more lives. Not my brother's. Not Josephine's. Not that baby's." Vivienne's lawyer tried to attack. This woman is seeking revenge. This woman is confessing to a crime, the judge interrupted coldly. She looked at Vivienne with undisguised contempt. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm denying your petition. Furthermore, I'm issuing a protective order. You are to have no contact with this family. And I'm forwarding this evidence to the district attorney for criminal investigation." She banged her gavel. "We're adjourned." Victory. They'd won. But Celeste wasn't in the courtroom anymore. She'd slipped out during Imani's testimony, and she'd taken something with her. The courthouse childcare facility was supposed to be safe. Aria had been there during the proceedings with her nanny Maria, who'd been with the family for months. Trusted. Careful. A woman who loved that baby like her own grandchild. During the recess, Maria needed to use the restroom. Just 2 minutes. She'd be right back. The desk attendant was managing multiple children. The room was chaotic. Everyone assumed someone else was watching. Celeste walked in wearing designer clothes and confidence like armor. Approached the desk. "I'm here to pick up Aria Hartwell. Family emergency." The attendant, young and flustered. "I need to see ID." Celeste showed her driver's license. The Beaumont name meant something in this courthouse, in this city. Old money. Respected family. The parents asked me to bring her to Chambers. There's been a development in the case. The attendant hesitated. Should call. Should verify. But Celeste's confidence, her expensive clothes, the chaos of the room, the fact that she knew the child's name. "I should call Mrs. Hartwell first." "You shouldn't waste the judge's time like that. He needs her in Chambers as soon as possible." Maria's instincts screamed no. But Celeste looked so legitimate, so calm. And they were in a courthouse, surrounded by security. That's when Celeste saw the security guard's shift change. A window. A moment. She grabbed Aria and ran. Maria came back this moment, and saw Celeste far towards the entrance and running. She screamed, "Stop! Someone stop her!" Chaos erupted, but there was no stopping a desperate Celeste. Arya crying, "Nanny! Mama!" By the time security reached the garage, Celeste was gone. The scream that came from Josephine when security burst into the courtroom. Child abduction wasn't human. It was primal. The sound a mother makes when her child is taken. Kyle ran. Josephine collapsed. Then ran too. They reached the childcare room to find Maria sobbing hysterically. Security pulling camera footage, other parents clutching their children. The footage showed everything. Celeste grabbing Arya, running. The parking garage. Her car heading north on the 101. Amber Alert issued immediately. FBI called. Kidnapping across state lines. Media descended like locusts. Josephine couldn't breathe. Couldn't stand. Just kept saying she has our baby. She has our baby over and over while Kyle held her and tried not to break. Vivienne arrived, and for the first time in 18 months, looked genuinely horrified. What? What happened? Celeste Beaumont abducted the child. All color drained from Vivienne's face. No. We were going to win custody. Legally. She wasn't supposed to. Oh God, what have we done? Too little. Too late. The conspiracy she'd orchestrated had spiraled beyond control. FBI traced Celeste's phone heading north toward Oregon. Beaumont family cabin. Remote, isolated. Perfect for hiding. Kyle and Josephine followed in an FBI vehicle. The longest drive of their lives. Every mile an agony. Every minute imagining Arya scared, crying, not understanding. She doesn't know that woman, Josephine kept saying. Arya doesn't know her. She's so scared. Kyle, they'll get her back. They'll bring her home. But his hand was shaking where it gripped hers. FBI tactical team surrounded the cabin just after dark. Celeste had barricaded herself inside. Negotiator tried, "Mrs. Beaumont, we need you to bring the child out safely." Silence. Then a text to Kyle's phone. "I'm protecting her from that woman. You'll understand. We can raise her together." Kyle showed FBI. "She's delusional. Let me talk to her." "Sir, that's not protocol. She thinks she's doing this for me. I'm the only one who can reach her." They patched the call through. Kyle's voice steady despite the terror. "Celeste. It's me. Kyle." Relief in her voice. "I knew you'd come. I saved her. I saved Arya from that woman who's destroyed your life. Celeste, I need you to listen very carefully. I love Josephine. I will always love Josephine. No, you just think you do because of guilt about the baby. I loved her before I knew about Arya. I love her now. I will love her forever. You're confused. Once you're away from her influence, what you're doing isn't love, Celeste. It's what my mother did. Control. Obsession. Destroying things to get what you want. Background, Arya crying. Calling Mama. Mama? Celeste. Sheet. Sweetie, it's okay. Arya, louder, terrified. I want Mama. I want Dada. Listen to her, Kyle said, his voice breaking. She's terrified. She doesn't know you. She wants her parents. I'm trying to help her. This isn't help. This is trauma. You're traumatizing a child because you can't accept that I don't love you. Long silence. Arya still crying. I just wanted. Celeste's voice cracked. I just wanted you to see. To love me. I know. And I'm sorry. But this isn't the way. Bring her out. Please. Before this gets worse. More silence. Then, quietly, and then what? I go to prison? Yes, but you can stop this now. You can end it before someone gets hurt. Arya's crying in the background, heartbreaking and constant. Finally, okay, I'm coming out. The front door opened. Celeste stepped out, holding Arya, both crying. She set the toddler down. Go to the officers. Arya, 18 months old and terrified, toddled toward the FBI agents. One scooped her up. I've got her. Child is safe. Celeste collapsed to her knees, immediately arrested. Josephine and Kyle were already running. Grabbed their daughter from the agent, checking her frantically. Scared but unharmed, crying but safe. All three of them collapsed together, holding each other, crying. Safe. That night, in their own bed with Arya between them, neither Kyle nor Josephine slept. Just watched their daughter breathe. Held her. Promised silently that this would never happen again. The trial came swiftly. Federal kidnapping charges move fast. Vivienne Hartwell, attempted murder from 18 months ago. Conspiracy, child endangerment. The evidence was overwhelming. The laptop searches. The medical testimony. Imani's confession. Celeste Beaumont, kidnapping, conspiracy, child endangerment. The courthouse footage. The Amber Alert. The standoff. Imani Hartwell, accessory to attempted murder, but with a plea deal for testimony against the others. The courtroom was packed. Media everywhere. The Hartwell family drama had become national news. Josephine's testimony was powerful. She stood on that stand and told her story to the world. The summer, the betrayal, the poisoning, the coma, the fear, and now this, another attempt to take her daughter. You tried to kill me, she said, looking directly at Vivienne. You tried to take my child. You lost, and I hope you find peace in prison, because I found mine outside of it. Kyle's testimony was harder, testifying against his own mother. But he did it, told them everything. The search, the discovery, the suicide attempt, the reunion, the conspiracy. She's my mother, he said, voice shaking. And part of me will probably always love her. But I will never forgive her, and she will never see her granddaughter again. That's the consequence of her choices. Imani testified last. A full confession. Everything she'd done. Everything she'd helped with. The guilt that ate her alive. I'm guilty, she said clearly. I helped try to kill Josephine. I deserve prison. But I won't let my mother destroy more lives. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing, Celeste Beaumont, 18 years. Vivienne Hartwell, 25 years to life. At 58, essentially a death sentence. Imani Hartwell, 5 years with parole possible in 3. When the sentences were read, Vivienne finally broke. Cried. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted my son back. Kyle stood to leave. Paused. Looked back at his mother one last time. You never had me to lose, Mother. You had control. There's a difference. Goodbye. And walked out of the courtroom with Josephine's hand in his, their daughter on his hip, toward a life finally free. 1 year later, the Malibu beach house felt like home. Really home. Not just a place to hide and heal, but a place where joy lived. Arya was almost 3 now, running through the house with boundless energy, her laughter the soundtrack to their days. Josephine was 7 months pregnant, glowing and healthy, one hand always on her belly, where baby number 2 kicked and rolled. They'd gotten married 6 months ago. Nothing fancy. Just them and Arya and Josephine's mother and Marcus on this very beach at sunset. Josephine in a simple white dress, Kyle in linen pants and a white shirt. Arya as flower girl, throwing petals everywhere except where they were supposed to go. The vows were simple. I will never let you go. Promise? Promise. Now Kyle stood on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. Josephine came up behind him, wrapped her arms around him from the side as much as her belly would allow. Marcus called, she said. Imani's parole hearing is in 2 months. Kyle nodded. How do you feel about that? I don't know. She saved Arya. But she also. Josephine trailed off. I can't forget what she did. But I also can't forget what she did to stop it from happening again. You don't have to decide anything today, Kyle said, pulling her close. Or ever. Whatever you need. They watched Arya play in the sand, building castles and laughing at the waves. We made it, Josephine said softly. Through all of it. Kyle turned to face her, one hand on her pregnant belly, feeling their second child kick. We did. Arya ran up, sandy and happy. Mama! Dada. Baby kick? Want to feel? Josephine asked. Arya put her little hand on her mother's belly. Eyes went wide. Baby. They all laughed. A family. Whole and healing and growing. The sun set behind them, painting everything gold. And in that moment, with his daughter's hand on his wife's pregnant belly, with the sound of waves and laughter, with the weight of the past finally lifting, Kyle knew they were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be happy. Some love survive everything. Betrayal. Poisoning. Comas. Conspiracies. Kidnapping. Because some loves refuse to die. They fight and bleed and break and put themselves back together stronger. This was that kind of love. The kind that says, I will never let you go. And means it. With every breath. Every heartbeat. Every moment. Forever.